The day is looking.
Yep. Hi, I'm Naomi Hall, and I want to welcome you to my virtual summit on stress management for educators. My whole goal with this summit is to provide you with powerful steps to reduce your stress, increase your quality time for yourself and for your family. Because when you are stressed, I know from personal experience, you just can't see the time. You can't find the time. You can't make the time. It just doesn't exist. So I created this summit to help you be able to find that. And so today I have with me Perry Tinsley, who is also an educator. He's a podcaster, he's an entrepreneur. He's also a mindset and fitness transformation coach with a compelling personal journey committed to transforming lives through education and personal growth. So, welcome, Perry.
Hey, so glad to be here on your summit. That's so awesome. Hey, educators. Hey, teachers. Hey, administrators. Good to see you.
I am so glad that you're here because I know you are well acquainted with the world of education. You've got some personal experience there.
Yeah, quite a bit. Definitely.
So tell me a little bit about what did you notice with stress and overwhelm for yourself when you were in education?
Oh, wow. When it comes, a lot of times I think we know we're feeling a little anxious or stressed about something. We're like, that's kind of normal. There's this little ebb and flow of stuff. But I don't think sometimes we don't realize the magnification that it seems to just compound year after year. Granted, we all signed up to be teachers for the high pay in June, July, and August, right? So, with that all that motivation, how could stress even happen? But I, just in noticing some of the things that were just going on, and the thing is, I didn't really notice how. Do I use the word high strung? It was maybe strung out. It might have been it with stress. My very first teaching years, I was a special ed teacher, kindergarten through fifth grade. The label or the terminology, it was behavioral emotional disturbance was the name of I forget what they even call it nowadays. I've been out of the teaching world, public education, for a long time, so I apologize for not being up to date on what that my group would be now. But while a wide variety of behavior things, but I loved it. I loved the kids. I loved the challenge. It wasn't until I made a decision to, now some of you might even freak out here. I made the decision to go to middle school, seventh grade. And some of you might be going, "Oh my gosh, you think that was a?" But I really got a kick out of seventh graders. I had a blast in middle school, but it wasn't until I was getting planning time. I was getting I had all of this other. I was out of that environment that I realized, oh wow, I still had my stress. I still had, but it was different. It was just a different stress. Now it's the parents. Now it's kids going through that transformation of middle school. But the stress was so different for me. So you kind of nailed it at the very beginning, where it just transitions into a lot of areas of your life where you're stress kind of can add up to weight gain, to behaviors that end up having you mindlessly munching when you don't want to, going out for extra drinks or something like that, and justifying all of it, because it was a long day, because it was this type of day. I don't think we necessarily say, becomes because I'm stressed or whatever. It's just this kind of this high energy that's constantly going on the inside, when we think we're calming and chilling ourselves out and stuff like that. So, I'm just kind of generalizing. I don't know if everybody goes through that sort of thing, but I did notice I had my special ed years, but I also I'm stressed carried over into many areas of life. I became a special education coordinator. So now I'm more in the administrative world. Well, the stressors come from different places. And I think a lot of us, the thing is, and what I hope you gain from my story today, or even some of the tips I give, is there are, we have the five senses, what we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, and that's all the input of all this stress. We got the major workload. Gosh, can you sign me up for more paperwork in the world of education, please? Just
Especially
one and
special
then an extra
education.
helping of it, and then if you can pile on one more meeting, that would make everything golden. But all of these extra things, and then the demands, and then the standardized testing and everything. And we just kind of go from event to event to event. Somehow we're working in some education and teaching there, but we're meeting with parents, we're meeting with administration. We've got changes that happen almost yearly with not only maybe with administration, but then some new system that's coming in. Now you've got to shift that thinking, whether it's some sort of strategy, whatever. And I think for a lot of us, we get done with June, July, and August. We come back to the school year, or we come back from a break. We're like, you know what? I just got to figure out my strategy. I've got to figure out this thing. If I just change my approach on class management, if I just change my attitude on this. But a lot of it, I found for me, to at least redo some of the stuff, was I had to just go with inside me and look at what I could control, because I was giving up my power to all the things that I couldn't control. And that was just adding to the stress. And then I would try to counteract that with some sort of thing, maybe it's drinks, maybe it's just avoiding paperwork, and then that piles up. There's all of a sudden the sense of urgency. You've got a bunch of IEP meetings to do that you've got to be ignoring, these things. And it would probably be easy to say, well, Perry, that's just you. I don't deal with that. And I applaud the person that's really super organized, because I don't think there's enough categories for the amount of papers that come through our mailboxes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always something. And figuring out some coping mechanisms, or things that you can go with inside to actually, for lack of a better word, deal with it, to calm yourself down, to be able to counteract those things, at least to bring the stress level down, I think can really help out in the long run, because year after year after year, I think that can pretty much compound. Then you've got adrenal fatigue, which most people don't know they have, and all that stuff. And I'm not a doctor and all this research on it. I just know of some clients of mine that deal with that, and it's not an easy, I have it and I don't. I mean, that's quite a process to undo.
You hit on a couple of things I want to highlight. One was the compounding year after year. It's not just that this was a hard year. It's that last year was hard, and the year before was hard, and the year before that was hard. And it compounds if you don't take the time. Like you said, it takes time to heal. But then you also turned it inside. And I was going to ask you, so there's all these external factors of stress that you named, but you also turned to the internal. Do we create, maybe not the nicest question to ask, but do we create some of our own stress in this? Are we a factor in this?
I think we have to take responsibility for any of it. We made a decision to be teachers. We choose the careers that we want. There are some things that we do have choices on, right? So I have to kind of step back and say, is the paperwork on me? Is the angry parent, is that on me? Is all this stuff? I think, to answer your question of what is on me and what I'm taking responsibility for, is reacting versus responding to what those things are. And just even given, I often, when I'm working with clients, when I'm working with people, and we talk about these things called paradigms, is kind of like the old stories, the old programming that we have that drives our behaviors and our habits. And I'm not just talking about teacher stuff. I'm talking about stuff that you grew up with as kids, and your environments there, where you live, all this stuff that you live up to these stories. That this is just the way life's supposed to be. Now that you're a teacher, there's these little teacher paradigms too.
Mhm.
And when you you've just gotten in really, really good at just reacting, like, oh, got a new administrator this year, or yeah, they're doing that thing again. They're bringing back phonics, whatever it is. I'm coming
Yeah.
up with a random term and I have no idea what's going on. But it's just some of those things that I think we can really, if we catch ourselves and realize that we're reacting,
Mm.
and all of a sudden there just becomes this extra thing that we're doing, and we're choosing to be overwhelmed and stressed out without even really realizing it. So that's kind of the thing that, to answer your question there. But I think you can reframe a lot of situations, and I think it takes practice. I think it takes repetition. It just takes really major awareness of how you react, but to be able to respond and be in more control on what you're letting get to you. Can you put more joy and more energy and more fun into what you do? And I caution anybody that maybe is watching this and maybe listening to me and going, yeah, but you don't know me, you don't have my kids. Yeah, that's fine for you to say, Perry, but I don't have. Then though, right there, that's a story you've chosen. It's just that is just kind of a resistance story that comes up. And I think, for me, that's one of the things I just noticed. And it took me several moves. I mean, it's not like I went into teaching, got stressed out for 3 years and went, oh, here's my answer. Every environment, everything had its stress, but I'll tell you what, my later years of teaching were so much fun. I absolutely, the fact that I even left teaching is kind of surprising, because I left when I loved it. But I find that I was choosing to be an observer and bring in, some activities and things that can kind of keep my stress down. I mean, some simple stuff like some breathing exercises, drinking water, eating healthier foods that weren't filled with stuff that would fuel the anxiety. Like sugar has a big impact on the body. And a lot of times that's where we're at. We're stressed out. We're down at the teacher lounge. We want to get together with other teachers who are ready to complain and whine about the kids and whine about the things that are going on. And there's that vending machine and more sugar and more fuel for it. But we don't realize it at the time that it's just constantly, we're constantly on our toes. Now, there may be the teachers out there that are going, I got it. I'm loving my job. I love the way things go. Excellent. Share your story. Share your what's working for you.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like, we have the stressed out, burnout teacher, and like you said, like misery loves company. Like we love to like grumble and complain and vent. But there are teachers who have been doing it for years and are still joyful and passionate, and they stay out of like the muck and the mire of what's going on.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey and what you found that worked for you. You've talked a little bit of like your own taking control of the controllable.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I felt like I was an overworked, overwhelmed, overweight teacher. I was at a place in my life where this was an interesting I think. I had gone through many, like an 11 and a half years with teaching special education. Loved most of my years. There was just one year where I had a group of kids that I called the career changers. I didn't say that to them, but I just
I think we've
noticed
all had them.
the teachers before me, the teachers before them, and then myself. By the end of the first quarter of the year, we were all applying and looking for careers, not outside, like what other school can I go to? No, we're looking for a totally different, what can I do outside of education?
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, those guys. But it wasn't just the kids, the parents joined in right there. I was like, man, it was a force.
Yeah.
But by the end of the year, I didn't want to let them go. They were awesome. So sometimes the clay is really hard before you can mold it something, right? But I I was in a job that I really, really enjoyed, but here were the things that were compressing me, and it wasn't all teaching. And this is the thing. It's really easy for us to say, well, we've got the IAP meetings, we've got the paperwork, we've got we're dealing with administration and parents, stuff like that. No, we're also dealing with what we got going on at home. We've got commutes, we've got traffic, we've got all the things that we put in. And for me, one of the biggest tipping points, and when it comes to change, sometimes people can decide to change, and it's like, I want to change this. I want to do some things, and that's going to just take some repetition, like I was telling you. The other change is kind of like an emotional impact, and I had an emotional impact incident. I'm not going to get deep into it, but it basically happened when I came home one night, and the county coroner was at my door telling me my wife had gotten killed in a car crash that day. So this is the middle of, oh my gosh, things are clicking, things are starting to go good. Now my life takes a pivot, but within tragedy sometimes can be triumph. And it's like, oh my gosh, Perry, how could, what? I can't imagine going through that. I give you a pass on that. But I after a month or two, I stepped back and went, what can I control when life is so out of control? And this can apply to your life, your career, your teaching gig, whatever you choose to do beyond teaching. What can I control? And started to look at those things going, okay, I can't control what happens on a highway somewhere else. I can't control traffic. And I had an hour commute back and forth. I was running. My wife and I at the time were running a German Shepherd rescue. Now it's on me. Hour to and from. I've got a side gig where I'm doing video editing and web design. And then I've got this job I'm doing all day. So it'd be really easy to just go, you know what, you're super busy, you're super crazy. And so I started listening to the stories I was telling myself. Am I really too busy? Am I really overwhelmed? Because if you keep telling yourself your story, you just get good at really living up to that story. And the thing is, if somebody questions you on it, you'll defend it. You'll put in all your energy to defend why you're busy, why you're overwhelmed, and you understand me, right? Yeah. But I started having the internal dialogue, and I'm like, okay, it's a fact. I've got all these things. Do I need to do all those things? Versus do I want to do all those things? And I still wanted to, I still wanted to do that thing. Okay, so I've got that. What are the things that I can control and do so that I can get these other things that I desired my anxiety to go down. I started working on my exercise because I was so out of shape, and I didn't think I got that out of shape. I drifted off the course for so long. It's kind of like scuba diving. I think I maybe told you about this before, where if you're out scuba diving, you're looking you got a different world under there, under the water, but it's really easy when you peek up. You don't realize how far you've drifted offshore. And sometimes you've drifted so far offshore, you can't even see it. We're now which way do you paddle? Right? So I had drifted so far off course. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make time for exercise. And I would tell myself, you can't do it here. You can't do it here. After a long commute, you got to sit down. You got to unwind. You got to unwind after you get home. That way, then you'll get motivated. And I called myself out on it. I'm like, you are not getting motivated by sitting down. What would it look like? And so I started doing these little 30-day tests with myself, make it a guinea pig test, or, just challenge for myself. What would it look like for the next 30 days if I didn't come home and just sit down, come home, let the dogs out, get my workout clothes in, let the dogs in, feed them, whatever, and then get my exercise done. Do it the next day, even when I'm overwhelmed, feeling unmotivated, whatever. No, this is just who I am. This is just part of my extended day. I'm doing this. By the end of 30 days, I'm like, wow, there's a shift in energy here. There's a shift in confidence. Now, it wasn't a shift in confidence at the beginning because I was out of shape. And so it's like, but I had to trust and believe that if I stayed for the next 30 days, there had to be some sort of transformation. Now, I might not have stepped on the scale and saw a big transformation, but I went from doing 2 push-ups to 5 push-ups on my toes. I was like, whoa, okay, there's progress. So a realization of progress is another thing I think is important, because a lot of times people look for perfection in the things that they do. If I can't go out and do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
Or if I don't lose that 20 pounds by the end of 30 days, that means I've failed. No, I went and I stopped playing that mind game. I decided, hey, I'm going to enjoy this. I don't not enjoy, I'm going to pay attention to the journey. And I decided to step into a self of mine saying, okay, so if I can I dial this back for a second here?
Yeah.
Okay. I started using my imagination more and more, visualization. Okay. And so I started thinking, what's my ideal goal? My first ideal goal is I just want to lose this stupid beer gut. That was it. But I got to thinking, well, once it's gone, then what? What do you learn along the way? What's that going to get you? What's that going to do for you? So I dug deeper into that. The levels of why. Why is that important? Why is that important? And basically, it boiled down to, I saw the blueprint of unhealthy habits of my family, where that was going, and I was following the same path, because this is just the way life is supposed to be. And we tell ourselves those stories as teachers all the time too, maybe in a different way. So I said, what is my ideal fit self when I'm at this ideal thing, whatever that is for me? What does life look like? How do I think at that? Am I using those excuses? Am I coming up with these stories? Am I waiting to be motivated? How am I shopping? Am I bringing in the tempting food? And the stress is still happening. So am I bringing things into my house that I know, because that box of brownies, I better hold on to those box of brownies up in the cupboard, because company might come over, and of course we will make brownies. No. The brownie box is up there because it's a safety net, meaning that when I'm stressed, I'll probably make brownies. I probably won't just have one. It'll be at least half a pan and an extra when I'm down and out. So what if those things didn't really necessarily? So I started thinking into the future. What does that future self look like? And then I stopped saying future self. I'm like, I'm going to be that person now. All those attributes, I'm going to be that person now, even though I'm not in shape, even though I'm not eating healthy, even though I hate vegetables, I'm going to start being that now. So I started doing those things. I drink water now. I'm a person who shows up for exercise now. I'm a person who shows up and does it even when you're unmotivated, And so talk about the compound effect in a totally different way. Now we talked about the compound of stress. I'm noticing more energy. I'm noticing my confidence is going. Clothing's starting to fit better. Belt loop notches are starting to shift. And I'm noticing how people react and respond to me is different. I notice how the workload is different, where in my my response to things, and I just become even more and more aware. Now I'm getting up with gratitude, considering this thing called meditation. What the heck is that? I don't know. How do you calm a mind? I'm a busy mind. Wait a minute. That's a story I'm trying to live, that I'm living up to. Well, maybe not. Affirmations. Oh my gosh, I saw that guy on SNL doing the affirmations. No, not for me. But what if they actually work? What if there's a way to make them? I don't know. I'll test these things out. And so these are little add-ons over the years that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling fulfilled. People notice that. I mean, when your energy is high, when you're happy, when you're upbeat. I mean, look at walking down the hallway in your school. A lot of times people are walking in a daze, looking their head down. When they get up to you, they kind of look up, maybe say hi, maybe give you a nod, back into their little stressed out zone, the busy to-do list, all this stuff, and all overthinking what's going on. And it's like, wow, how did I shift? And then I stepped back and I was like, this was an inside job. I was at a crossroads in my life and said, what can I control? And I started looking at, can I start making these decisions? And I was not attached to the outcome either. It
Mm,
wasn't, sometimes people, that's why people they exercise and then they don't exercise.
yeah.
They eat right and then, and to maybe deprive themselves and then they overeat. It's on again, off again. I changed that story too. I said, what if this is just who you are now? This is just your life.
Mm,
You become that. How does life look now? And so that was a big shift and it didn't happen overnight. This was, but repetition, the compound effect. All of a sudden, um, it's amazing how opportunities start to open up for you too. I often share the story, and you probably heard this before, where you're just like, you're just looking for something to change. I need a new strategy. I need this, but I don't want somebody to tell me in the district what to do. I just need to figure it out myself. We're always looking for that. And we're looking at a closed door where, if we're actually taking care of ourselves and making ourselves a priority, other doors are opening up around you. All you got to do is turn around and do that. So, I mean, waking up, smiling, being in gratitude, using deep breathing, water. I mean, all these things really don't take that much time and effort.
yeah.
But I will tell you that many people dismiss them, especially when it comes to exercise and stuff, because they'll put their happiness and their health on a deferred payment plan. They'll basically
Mhm.
say, when life settles down on this, when Monday happen, then I'll do this. When standardized testing is done, when the holidays are over, when it's summer. Always setting the benchmark, never making a committed decision to
Mm,
do anything for yourself. And then maybe dabbling in it, because January 1st hit,
mhm.
or maybe the wellness plan in the district came along and we've got this walking thing going and we're doing all these things. Sometimes those things will kickstart people in a direction, but this constantly deferring things down. So if anything, I hope somebody walks away with just some awareness of how you're thinking and some simple tweaks to be able to change it. Because when you're doing these things for yourself, you're putting yourself more in control. You're able to respond to the things that can be rather stressful and put in the overwhelming category. And it's just a whole different vibe. It does not to say that life won't happen and up days and down days don't happen, but how you respond versus the habitual reaction and the compounding of the stress can really, I think, be managed better. So,
I love how you talk about changing the story. And that's
yeah.
something that I've worked on and done some journaling on, of like, I am I am a successful business owner. I'm a business owner now. So, like, how do I define success, and what does a successful business owner look like? And I am that person right now, rather than I will
Mhm.
be that person. I am that person. I'm going to act like that
Yeah.
person. And I will, in the action, I will be successful. So
Yeah.
I think that's such a huge thing, of changing those stories and just becoming aware of those stories that we're
Mhm.
telling ourselves. And I think you and I talked about this a little bit when we talked before, of the proverbial they. Like, they
Mhm.
say, like, we always have, well, why are you doing this? Well, they say that. Well, who's the they? Like, someone
Mhm.
told me to start questioning, who's the they in my
Mhm.
story?
Yeah.
Well, did anyone actually say you have to be at work until this time, or you have to respond in this
Yeah.
amount of time, or you have to? Well, no, I kind of made that story. And since
Yeah.
I made that story, I can change that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Start looking at the boundaries that you can set. Um, it's really easy as a teacher. Your work hours aren't the 8 hours. It's really easy to keep going on and on and on and on and on, and then all the volunteering stuff, signing up for this committee and this committee. But actually dialing, looking at it, is that serving you? I know you want to be of service. I get that totally. But at what cost? If being of service is costing you your health, your relationships, the things that are functioning in your life, is that totally worth it. And you bring up a great thing with the I am stuff. I think when you're getting into those I am statements, if you can absorb yourself in the feeling of how that is and getting in the motion of that, it solidifies it. And if you can start suffocating the extra voices, this little secret self voices that go, it's like, I am healthy, I'm a person that exercises, and then you get this little voice like, no, you don't. You just binged on stuffed crust pizza last night, and you sat and watched three episodes of Ted Lasso. Come on. You start to hear that little inner chatter.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you are. Edit, undo button. See ya. Whatever. I think that can really be it. And the they, not only the they and around us, but the they that have created the stories that you've lived up to, whether it's when you became a teacher, or even just if you look at some of your family your rituals, your reaction. Like one of the things that I've had to catch myself on, and this has nothing to do with education, has nothing to do with health and wellness stuff. It's my reaction to either when I miss an exit on the highway, or when somebody out of nowhere is trying to pull up a little bit faster and going, and then the old mindset of, oh, you're not going to pass me. What's that all about?
Yeah.
Why does it even matter that we're giving our energy to somebody that can just, because if they weren't even there, are we going, oh, ghost cars coming up? No.
Yeah.
Go to the next exit, turn around. But I there are little things like that, that are just little stories, little things that we get reactive. And when we can pay attention to those, just say, you know what, I can totally rewrite that story. I can totally change that. I might catch myself from time to time,
Oh, for sure.
like, oh, I started to snap or get mad and be like, oh, nope, that's just an old program. It's just an old story, edit, undo, or whatever you want to say, and change the other one, a different direction.
Yep.
So then you're using your energy more toward the things that you desire, things that you want, whether you want to be a great educator, whether you want to become an administrator someday, whether you want a different career, whatever it ends up being. When you can put your energy toward that, as opposed to the energy towards putting out fires because of all the theys and all the things and all the reasons why you're upset and you don't have the resources and all the stuff. I think you'll have a different perspective on what it is that you do, and bring more fulfillment to yourself, which can be calming in the stress area, I think.
Yeah. So what are your top 2 or 3 tips for teachers right now who are in the midst of that stress, that burnout, to really start to turn that around for themselves, to start to
Oh,
find that joy again?
what are my tips? I think one of the things, I think, just sitting down with yourself. And I know sometimes when it's like, oh, I got to think about myself, that seems like extra work. But a lot of times we don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, how we think, how we react, what we do. I think you're just writing down and getting it out. There's a magic that happens when you put pen to paper. I get it. We want to text things. We want to think, just think it out loud. We get all of our to-do lists, and then we're bummed out when we forget something. But I think just if you're into journaling, or even just a notebook, not even a journal, just to get out, what is it that you want? What is that ideal version of yourself, that who is not stressed, who is really effective and efficient in their job, who is really making a difference, who is loving what they're doing, who brings joy every day. I mean, should those things be, matter to you? I'm not saying you have to do that. I mean, if you like doing the way things that are, but you probably aren't watching this summit anyway then. But I think getting that done, getting clear. If these are the things that are important to me, and maybe it's like, oh gosh, I do want to start a side gig, or I do want to have my own business one day, or that's what I did along the way. I was like, gosh, I enjoy serving people in different ways I love being creative. So what does that look like? what have I been kind of setting on the shelf or putting aside with myself, my priorities, my the things that bring happiness to my life? And what would it look like if those things were in my life? And who do I need to be?
Mm,
What are those things to do that? And who do I need to be now to do it?
yep.
Because when you put it off in the future, it will always stay in the future. You say, oh, that's my future self. That's my someday maybe list.
Mm,
It will end up and stay in your someday maybe bucket. Um, and that might excite you, but I'm like, like the day that I got the knock on the door from the corner, it's like, we're not, we're not certain on how long we have. So why not be happy in the now? Why not do the things now that can make life really happy and fulfilled? Right. So that's one. What do I don't want to break down all of these little things here, but that would be one. Another one could just be some simple things, just some simple habits. Like, I'm going to give you a sheet that you can download, not a sheet, it's a checklist of just habits that I do. I now do them in the morning. I don't do all of them, but there's like 14, 15 of them that you can download, use. I would say just pick a habit. Let's say it's breathing, something like box breathing. You might not have heard that before, but it's super simple. And it really, I think a friend of mine, she teaches Qigong, I think it's called. She said, I do breathing exercises with my clients, and that helps people de-stress more in a month than it does with therapy over a year. So I don't know if that was her exact quote, but box breathing. Breathe in for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and then hold, wait another count of 4, and doing a few cycles of that in the morning, but I think even that, and doing, I like doing like little tension tamers, like shoulder shrugs, and there's a little list of those that I have where it's like neck rolls and stuff like that. But things that, because we hold a lot of tension up here,
mm.
drinking more water than you think you need. I know the word on the street is like half your body weight in ounces. Well, drink a little more than that. Get your organs to function really optimally. I mean, those things, having a morning gratitude ritual.
Mm.
If you can get into moving and doing exercise, way cool, even better. But be diligent about it. And just pick a habit and do it for like 30 days. Test it out. I'm going to test this out for 30 days, and then I'm going to add on a habit, not stop it. We don't want diet mentality here. Like, oh, I'm on this thing. Can't wait till the 30 days are over, because then I can get off of it. Because that's what a lot of people do when it comes to their fitness, is like, go back to your list and say, who do I desire? Who am I now?
Mm-hmm.
And if I am a person who exercises, be and live up to that person. If it's like, oh my gosh, I am so out of shape that I can't even do that, it's like, okay, my day-to-day thing is I'm walking up and down the school hallway 3 times on purpose, not because I've got to go get paperwork and go into the lounge or whatever, and I'm saying, oh, that counted as steps. No, make it, because now you're telling yourself, I'm a person who exercises.
Yeah.
Not, I'm a person who happened to walk down the hall because there was a meeting. I'm counting it as my steps. Yes, those are steps, but let's get into, if I'm a person who exercises, then be that person who shows up and does exercise. Make time for yourself each day. Maybe it's a mindset ritual or whatever. My mindset ritual, I kind of spun off of Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning book. He does this, sitting in silence, affirmation, some visualization, you get some exercise in there, reads 10 pages of a good uplifting book, not a book to make him escape, but something that's going to empower. Because that's the thing is, a lot of us, we set goals, but a lot of times we're setting goals that we already know how to do. It's to set a goal that's really going to stretch you and grow you. And what if your professional development goal, when you're sitting down with administration this year and you're like, what are your goals? And you're like, oh my gosh, here we go again.
Mm.
What if one of your professional goals was to take care of yourself personally, to be the best version of yourself in health, in mindset, in happiness, and joy? And that's got it's got to have an impact on your stress. Not to say that the job doesn't come with all those things, but you will notice, and this is one of those trust and belief sort of things. You'll notice a shift. So if you were to take these habits and just say, you know what, September I'm doing water. In October I'm doing water and I'm doing the breathing stuff. In November, I'm doing some home exercise or whatever, whatever it is. If you want to add more, that's fine. But don't make it such a huge list that you go a couple weeks and then you're burned out from that because you're like, oh, I can't do one more thing. Take it in baby steps. So I don't know how many things I just gave there, but that's just kind of my take on empowering yourself over the summer here and coming in with a different perspective.
I love it. I think you gave some great, great tips. And I love the like do it for 30 days and then add to it and
Yeah.
then add to it. I think that takes away some of the like the stress of it of
Mhm.
like, oh, I gotta get healthy. Like I gotta be a healthy person. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot. Well, no, you can start with something small. Like you said, just drink more water. Just walk down the hallway 3 times. I
Mhm.
worked in a big school and I could do a huge lap. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I would like walk down our hallway, downstairs, through the downstairs
Mhm.
hallway, make a loop through whatever we had like A, B, C, D, E, F, G
Yeah.
wings, make my loop through the wings and back to my desk. And by the time I got back to my desk, I was like, all right, I'm awake, I'm energized, I can work.
Yeah. You can go and do something like that. Do some breathing along the way. Do some even affirmations or some of those I am statements or some things, some positive self talk to yourself.
Yeah.
What you're doing with this is you're rewiring your brain. You're reprogramming things. And I know it sounds silly when you're saying, I am great, I am golden, I am awesome. And you're just not in the belief there. You're not getting in the feeling of it. You feel like you're just going through the motions. And so at the beginning, some of this stuff may seem uncomfortable because you haven't gotten good at it yet. It's just like, hey, if you were going to go and sign up for an archery class and you've never shot an arrow before, it's going to be awkward. Your first arrows are probably just going to fall on the floor somewhere.
Yep.
But you show up day to day with practice, repetition, with intention and focus and fun. And all of a sudden, things start to click. All of a sudden, you tip the scales. Maybe a little weight reference there, but you start tipping the scales um, in the positive favor as opposed to the limiting stories favor of that what's been holding you back. And I know a lot of us, we don't really think of, oh, that's a limiting belief holding me back. We just don't think of those things. It's just like, it's just who we are, who we've lived up to be, and it's just old programming that's there. But when you can stop and say, oh, now I'm aware of this, I can step back and take these little moments for myself. And part of my work day, which might be scheduled just to the hilt, there's going to be a slot in there for me for self-care, whether it's over, one of the things that I learned was, or that I used to love to go into our teachers lounge because the group I hung out with, we would laugh, we would have so much fun. But then there was a year of some contract negotiations.
Oh,
Stress went high, went in there, and you thought you were just in a little war zone of complaining, whining, all this stuff, and pointing fingers, all this stuff. I chose, as much as I wanted to hang out with those guys, adored them, I chose to eat lunch on my own, just for my own stress, my own sanity. And I was like, once this settles, should they, things go back to happy and glory, which they didn't,
mm,
I'm okay with that. It was kind of like, I know I'm being a little selfish and it might seem like, oh, you're over there, got your own thing there. No, I'm just taking care of me. I know you're not. you know and great, yeah, this sucks, this isn't good. But us sitting here and just whining and complaining about it, not doing and taking any action, that's a lot of wasted energy. Or at least if it's not wasted energy, it's a lot of negative energy that can really zap your power and kind of drain you and increase those stress levels.
absolutely. There's
Yeah.
one other thing that you mentioned that I wanted to just highlight was setting big goals. I think in education, and you set a lot of goals because in special education you're doing those IEPs and you're setting these sequential goals for your students, and we set goals for ourselves. And we're all about smart, attainable,
Mm,
smart goals. But I think we forget to dream and go big.
yeah.
And I've been, in my own personal development, listening to like Brendan Burchard and Dr. John Finn, and both of them are talking about no, don't set the reasonable goals, set
Mm,
the big
yeah.
goals. Like go big, go unreasonable, because it's
Hmm.
not necessarily about becoming or getting to
Yeah.
that goal, but it's who you become in that process of
Yeah.
working towards that goal. And I think like I finally started dreaming again and like setting big goals, mean I'm shooting for the stars here. Like we
Yeah.
tell our kids to shoot for the stars, but then we're like, be reasonable.
Mm,
Set reasonable goals. So I love
yeah.
that you brought up like set some big goals.
Those are just, stories that we do to protect ourselves.
Mhm.
We don't want to set ourselves up for disappointment. Um, but yeah, I had several of those moments where, one of them was to go and apply for a grant that our district is doing. It's a big
Mm,
technology one. And I, it intrigued me so much. And when I got it, basically the lady in curriculum said, well, you've got your grant. Our goals are going here. Your grant goes this way. So just good luck, you know. And so they basically just encouraged me that, like, you just go off and do your thing. We're
mm,
still going to do our thing, even though I was having to do something within the math. And I'm like, no, that doesn't have to be the story. All right, count me in. Tell me about the math stuff.
yeah.
We can tweak this grant and all this. So basically it was just a shift in mindset, a shift, but I could have taken what she said and just went off, did my own thing. But now we're being recognized. Now I'm getting letters from the superintendent of the state, all this stuff, just because it was like, oh, I'm going to step up into something I've never done before.
Yep.
Somebody that had just had his own classroom, and we moved to another part of the state because my wife got a different job. And I was like, well, I like technology. This is a technology job. And so we actually helped that curriculum move faster than they ever thought it could, because we worked in tandem. But it was one of those things that didn't seem like obvious. And should it have been, let's set the SMART goal, the way the SMART goal is usually written out,
Mm,
it probably wouldn't have happened.
mm.
But it's like, okay, let's just question this and see where this takes. Should we start thinking different and really going for it? So I love that you've got that vision, and Brendan's awesome. And there's so many great thought leaders out there that
Oh,
really
yeah.
can shift our perspective
Yep.
and help us grow.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope that some of our audience
Mm,
sets a big goal and that they set I am going to be the healthiest version of me PD
yeah.
goal. Like I love that you brought that up, and I would challenge anyone who's listening that you being the healthiest version of you means you are the best version of you as a teacher. And
Mhm.
I can say that personally, that becoming the healthiest version of me made me the best teacher I could be, because the unhealthy version of me didn't have patience for my kids, didn't, was very rigid. The healthy version of me could flex a little more and have a little more fun with my kids. So I
Uh,
have three ending questions for you that are just fun questions.
Three more. All right.
Yeah. So, what are you reading? What are you listening to? And what are you watching?
What am I reading? I am in a book right now. It's really pretty fascinating. This is perfect for the people that want to work on self-image stuff. One's called Psycho-Cybernetics. It sounds really
Oh.
technical and way out there. Basically, a plastic surgeon back in the 60s just noticing when he would do surgeries how people, once the different noses put on, they either became different people or they never saw themselves as different. It's a lot of self-image stuff there. And getting back, a cybernetic instrument is kind of like a thermostat, you're always going back to your factory setting
Mm,
or whatever you set the thermostat at. So we talked about big goals. What if your big goal is now 82?
mm,
Are you going back to the 72 setting? So that's one thing. Reading was one. What am I
Watching and listening to.
Watching. Well, the listening part, I'm actually re-listening to that book as well. At the same thing. But I'm also going through with my watching stuff. I'm learning a lot from Bob Proctor. And so I've gone through a lot of his trainings and stuff like that. He's passed on, but just his work on helping people to shift their thinking and to use these internal faculties as opposed to looking at what we can see, hear, taste, touch, whatever, but going into reasoning, imagination, and intuition and stuff like that, and using the power of that. So that's where I'm at with my studies and my watching stuff.
All right. Some
Pretty
good
cool.
stuff. Yeah, I've heard of Bob Proctor. I haven't listened or read any of his stuff, but I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miss
Well,
him. He passed on about a year and a half ago. So, but his content still was amazing.
well, I want to thank you for joining us. This was fantastic. You had some great tips for our audience.
You're welcome. I hope that was helpful. And do you want me to share with where they? Yeah, if they anybody wants those success habits, and I'm going to tell you straight out, you might read it and you might say, "Oh, I've seen that already. Oh, I've done that already." I'm going to caution you to watch the words that you're saying, because there's a difference between the knowing and the doing. If you're doing all the things, then you know what I mean. If you are reading it and you aren't doing it, then you can start doing these habits, because once you get going on that. But morningsuccesshabits.com, you can download it for free, just enter an email, and it's all yours.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And so go check it out. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and make sure you check out the rest of the interviews. They're filled with practical tips, just like what Perry shared with us. And check out his podcast as well. He also has a podcast. So go listen to that. I have not listened to your podcast yet, but I am an avid podcast listener. So need to add it to my rotation. But thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everybody has a great day. We'll see you.
It was an honor. Take care, everyone. Have a great school year.